Hello, good morning. How good to have you all with us again on this series of Saturday talks. And we have a very important communication to give you because we are celebrating 2 years of continuous talks on April 11. So you are all invited to join us and to be with us and to continue celebrating in this work that we are doing with so many guests that have been coming every Saturday to talk to us and to share their knowledge. And we are at the United States Spiritist Federation committed to present Spiritism to everyone. We are choosing different topics. So also we would like to ask you to support our efforts with a donation to the United States Spiritist Federation. So you can go to our website, spiritist.us, or by scanning the QR code on screen. We are using these resources to make more publications in English available to everyone. And as a reminder, the United States Spiritist Federation also has released a weekly virtual course called Initiation into Spiritism every Sunday at 10 a.m. East Coast time. So join us or live, or you can watch later in this course as well. And now we have today a very special friend that is from Orlando with us. It's very dear to my heart, him and his family, and we are very happy to introduce to you Alex. He's a worker and the general coordination of Plenitude Spiritist Society in Kissimmee, Florida. Is a former board member of the Spiritist Federation of Florida, active in the American Spiritist movement in the last 15 years. And as I said, most of all, he's a very dear friend, and we have been working together for quite some time. And we are very happy to have you here today, Alex, with us. Please, if you want to say initial words before we started.
Jusara, good morning, and good morning to all of you guys and all of our friends that have the opportunity to join us on these wonderful tasks that we are having every Sunday, every Saturday for 2 years now. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so very much for the presentation. Um, you know, you kind of suspected to be because as we are so close friends, and I admire your work so much that it's kind of a bias this kind of a presentation. But anyways, I it's my pleasure. It's an honor to be here with you guys this morning.
Great, thank you, Alex. And so before I ask Alex to start his presentation, as a reminder as well, please remember that after he finishes, we will have time for questions. So send your questions to us, and we will present them at the end of the presentation to Alex. Okay, thank you so much for being with us. And with that, we will ask Alex to start your presentation. Thank you, Alex.
So good morning, everyone, and once again, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be talking today about a very kind of an intense topic. So let me just bring my PowerPoint for you guys over here, which is we're going to be talking about the Church of Jesus. First of all, before we start, I just want to do a disclaimer over here, okay, guys? This study has no intention whatsoever to or deconstruct the importance of the religions or the institutions that we have nowadays on Earth. This study has the sole purpose to broaden our view. What I'm trying to do is to bring a few other perspectives on this concept of church itself. We're going to start to see what the word church means for man, or it is defined by man or by the dictionary. And then we also is going to see and take a look at how Christ sees the concept of church based on a couple of passages that we can find on the New Testaments. Uh, but the question is, why is so relevant that we make this distinction? What is the importance of this? How What is in there for me? How can I apply that for my life? What is the main purpose behind of these distinctions and these ideas? Our idea and our goal is to present the concept that we have almost the obligation to behave everywhere as we would be inside of church. When we first think, or our first thought when we say, I'm going to church, give us the impression that we are going to somewhere, to some place, to practice the concept of the ideas, or to study or to learn the ideas of Christ. But what Spiritism brings to us, it's a little bit more broader vision about this. That we shouldn't be just going to church to learn and to understand these ideas. That we can go this, or we can practice this pretty much everywhere and every days on our lives. So, as I like to say always, first things first. So, how do we start? Well, we started by the definition of church by man, or by the dictionary, as we can see on this slide. Church can be defined as a building for public and especially Christian worship. It also can be defined by the clergy of officialdom, or officialdom of a religious body, and also a body of organization of religious believers. These are the definitions that we got out of the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And if you look in other dictionaries as well, the definitions are pretty close, pretty similar. But what are these definitions in common? It's important to notice that these definitions are matter related. Uh, We are material beings. We are spiritual beings that we are having a material experience. And as we're having a material experience, the matter itself, it has, I would say, for most of us, um, a broader importance in our lives. So we carry and we deal more with the matter than we deal with our spiritual side. So these definitions are more related to the matter, to the church, to the building, to the physical aspect of the church. On this definition, it's not approaching or embracing any side of the spiritual concept of the church. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. There is nothing wrong with the buildings, with institutions and everything. But on our perspective, it lacks the concept of divinity. Because when we look into the Christ's teachings, and even from God, since the beginning, since the Vedas and everything, God is inviting us to be connecting with Him. But since the beginning, we didn't have the churches when we had the Vedas, when we had the Confucius, when we have Moses. The synagogues were built and were constructed much later than and much after than Moses and everything. So, if God was expecting us to be connected with Him since the beginning, and we didn't have the churches or the buildings or the physical environments on that time, why should we be doing this inside the church, inside a building nowadays? If God in the beginning didn't have the places to be worshipped, so He was expecting us to be worshiping Him or connecting with Him everywhere. So that's what a kind of a Christ brings back to us on His concepts, on His teachings again, when He starts to bring new ideas and new concepts about the church, the reunion itself. So I'm just bringing over here two small passages, two phrases from the New Testament. Both of them we can find in the Gospel of Matthew. And the first one, it's in the chapter 18, verses 19, that says, for where two or three are gathered in my name, there am I among them. He was not saying where we should be. Christ was not saying if you are in the church on my name. No, He says, where two or three are gathered in my name, there I'm among them. This verse does not specify where whatsoever. Therefore, it can be anywhere. We learn through the Spirit's book that thoughts is everything. Uh, the, our intentions, our feelings, our thoughts are much more important than the physical aspects or the how do you say this? There's another word for that that I just lost for now. I'm so sorry. If we have good intentions and good vibes, and we are surrounded by good spirits with good vibes. So, thought is everything. If you have good thoughts, we're going to be surrounded by good spirits. If you have good intentions and good vibes, we're going to be surrounded by good spirits as well. If our thoughts, our intentions are not so good, then we're going to be attracting to us as well less evolved spirits. So we connected and we make the connection with the divinity, with the divine, with the spirituality based on our thoughts. So that's why Jesus said, gather it in my name. So if we are getting together in Jesus' name with good intentions, good vibes, we'll be surrounded by good spirits and we're going to be supported by these good spirits in help, in good ideas, in inspirations, on whatever we're looking for. Actually, this gathering my name, it's a fundamental condition in order to expand the Jesus church everywhere. Wherever we are, if we are gathering his name, we're going to be able to represent his church wherever we are. If Jesus is everywhere, it is illogical to think that the house of Christ is only the Catholic Church, the Protestant temples, or even the Spiritist Center, or even the mosques or the synagogues, because we cannot forget that Jesus came from everywhere. The mosques and the synagogues, they came later on, but Christ came from everywhere. So if Christ and Jesus is everywhere, it cannot be defined or restricted just for a physical building institution that was created after he passed it, after he came to earth. Therefore, when we think like that and we kind of broaden our thoughts and our vision, we can come to the conclusion that the house of God become the universe. The universe, wherever we are, becomes the house of God. That's one of the things and the ideas that we can extract from this passage. There's another passage also that's also in Matthew chapter 6 that says, but when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. On this second verse, it becomes clear that we don't have to be at a physical church or a building to pray and to ask and to connect it with divinity. We can do this everywhere as long as we do this with the solely intention to connect and not to show off. Because on these very same passages, we have the two the two persons that comes to the church. One comes in a humble position, asking forgiveness for everything that he has done wrong, and the one is showing up himself that he's at church to be seen, showing that he was doing his obligations or fulfilling his obligations with the prayer and everything. So if you are connecting and if you are getting together in order to be listened by God and connected with divinity in a humbleness state, that's the way that we're supposed to be doing. If we are not showing off, because most of the time or some of the times we do that because we would like to show off to other people, then we are not virtuating the initial purpose of this. We can do it everywhere, and we connect this wherever we are, as long as we're doing this gathering in Jesus' name. Of course, more people that we get together, the more powerful are our waves of good vibrations. Um, I must say that we should replace church. No, I am not. Church is itself. And church over here, define it as by man, the building, the physical space. Is still a very important place where we should go, where we can go together. Because once we started to work together with the same intentions and the same vibrations, everybody all together, our intentions it grow up in strength, and we can do more in a group than we can do just by ourselves. But am I saying that we have to replace church, that we can replace church? No, what I'm saying is that we can do this from everywhere. Everywhere, wherever we go, we can become that place at the place of church, as a place of God, as a place of divinity, or as a place of connection everywhere. So Moving forward, there is another passage that I would like to bring and share with you guys, which I think that kind of a basis or in base my line of thoughts over here, which is a passage that we can find in the book The Way, the Truth, and the Life, that was dictated by the Spirit of Emmanuel and channeled by the medium Francisco Candidate Xavier. So on the previous slide that we say, for where two or three are gathered in my name, there I'm among them. So how do we gather in Jesus' name? How do we do that um, on a daily basis like that? I would say that we can do that bringing his values and teachings everywhere that we are. So that's how we gather Jesus, bringing his values and teachings everywhere that we go. Now, in this passage, on this book, it's on the preface, the preface that says, it has a text or a chapter that says, interpreting the secret texts. On this chapter, Emmanuel brings us the following words and the following information, which I love it, and I've seen, and I've saying this in several other talks, and I've been repetitive. I ask you for your forgiveness, and I apologize for that. But I love this passage and these words, and these words goes like that. Furthermore, the lesson of the master is not only an imperative for the purpose of worship. So the lessons that we get from Jesus is not just for worship. The gospel cannot be reduced to a breviary for the kneeling board. Kneeling board is that board that we kneel ourselves while we are in the church during the mass, usually during the Christian celebration, to pray or to say our words or something like that. So the gospel is not just for worship, to read and to say, oh, I love these words, or to be read while we are in the kneeling board, kneeling and praying. Emmanuel says the gospel it is an indispensable script for legislation and administration, for service and obedience. Christ does not draw a line between church and a workplace. The whole earth is simultaneously his prayer altar and his work arena. By praising him in the churches while denying him in the streets, we have become shipwrecked 1,000 times before due to our own faults. However, any place can be consecrated to the divine service. Look at how deep is this concept and this idea from Emmanuel. Emmanuel is bringing these to us, saying, "Well, the gospel that we have is not just a guide to be learned, decorated, that we can say the words from heart or from because we know the words and everything." But one thing is knowing the words. The other thing is putting those words into practice. And what Emmanuel is saying to us, you don't have to go to church to be putting these words and values into practice. You can go these everywhere because Jesus does not separate or does not draw a line between church and a workplace. Everywhere on earth, it's a place where his values can be applied. Everywhere on earth, it's a place where we can demonstrate somehow that we have learned his values, and most importantly, we live by his values. That's our greatest challenge. Because to live by his values while we are in church, it's easy. Oh, most of the time it's easy. Most of the time we don't have conflicts. Most of the time we are over there getting together or gathering together among friends on a kind of a celebrations, or we are in a good environment, in a good moment, in a good mood. So it isn't that much difficult to be living by his values while we are inside of any religious institution. But while we are out there on our workplace, on our home environment, with our friends, and other places that we are called on a daily basis to be exemplifying his teachings, that's the biggest challenge that we have. And that's the real church that we have ahead of us to be practicing his teachings and his values. Because practicing the church, it's easy. What is challenging is doing that outside those environments. But what is how can we get, or what is the most important place of our lives where we can start, or whether we should be practicing those teachings, or something like that. I would say that one of the most important places of our entire life, it's our home. That's what we can call our sacred base. That's what we can call our sacred places. That's where we go when we don't feel good or we need some kind of embracing. We're looking for our home. We're looking for our place, a place where we can feel safe, a place where we can be embraced and helped and loved, and so many other feelings that we might be looking for. Um, that's the place where we should consider as the most important places in our lives. When we say that we are expecting changes in the society, when we say that we are, I'm always praying for changes, or I'm expecting changes, or I'm praising for changes, or we would like the society to be changed, I'm looking for a better society in the future and everything. Well, in order to get the change, we ourselves must be the change that we want to see in others. If we want to see others doing the things that we would be praising for, we should be the ones changing ourselves to start with. Home is the primary cell of society, it's the base of our society, the cornerstone of our values, the foundation of our lives. Society will change from inside out. In order to change society, we must first change ourselves. Where is the base that we can start to changing ourselves? The corner value of the cornerstones of our values, our home. But there's a difference between practicing the home, practicing or bringing the gospel at home, and implementing the gospel at our home. Spiritism has a concept, it has an idea, which I'm going to be developing a little bit further in the next slides. So I think that I'm going to bring a kind of a surprise to a lot of us, because it was for me when I was preparing this study. Spiritism has a concept, an idea, which is called the gospel at home, which is the idea to be studying the gospel at our place. What a Jesus church asks for us is not just to be doing the gospel at home, but implementing the gospel of home. What is the difference? English is not my native, my first language. Sometimes I get confused with the grammatical meanings and phoneticals of the things and everything. But my idea that I would like to share with you guys this morning is gospel at home means a place where we do things, means a place where we do the gospel, we study gospel, we open the gospel, and we read the words and we discuss about the concepts and the values and everything. That's the place where we do things. But when we were talking about the gospel of home, means a place where things belong to. So we are not just using our home as a place to study, but we are implementing the values and the statutes and the concepts of the gospel of Jesus at our home. So these values will belong to our place and to ourselves. So that is the distinction between doing the gospel at home and the gospel of home. We first start with the gospel at home, because that's the place that we're going to be studying the book of Jesus, or the teachings of Jesus. But the purpose of these, the intentions for this later on, is to become a gospel of home, a place where we're going to be implementing the values, and most importantly, living and practicing these values. Yes, forgiveness. Yes, understanding. Yes, patience, tolerance. Yes, all of these things. That's where we're going to start to practice. We are not going to start to practice tolerance and forgiveness, understanding, and everything with our next door neighbor. The very first place we're going to start is going to be on our home. So, in order to become and to belong, in order to implement truly, we're going to start to live those values at our home. That's where the Church of Jesus inside of us will start to develop. And now a few things, a few curiosities, which when I was preparing this study, it came into my knowledge. And when I look at it, I said, wow, this is really, really interesting. And I think that's going to be a surprise to a lot of other people as well. So let's compare and let's take a look on this guidance from Spiritism, which is gospel at home, with some other religions as well. Let's go first to the Mormons, our brothers and sisters from the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints. This information over here was gathered out of their official website, the website from the Mormons, the Church of Jesus Christ. Here they have why we hold family home evening. And look at this. Family home evening is a time to strengthen family ties. We do this by learning the gospel together, by listening to each other's feelings, thoughts, and ideas, and by enjoying activities together. It is usually held on Monday evenings. When we go to the gospel at home, we recommend that we use the same day of the week, the same hour, the same time, in order to create some disciplines for ourselves, and in order also for the spirituality to be programmed to be around us and give us the support and the strength that we might need to understand the lesson, to keep faithful to our commitments and this kind of things. So look at this. The Church of the Mormons, they have exactly the same concept, to study the gospel as a family on a regular basis, on a fixed date, in order to create the commitment. So let's take a look now on our friends, our Muslims friends. This also, it's on a website which is based in Europe, where they guide the Muslims people to studies and everything. One of the most important goals for any Muslim family is to build a deep connection with the Quran. And one of the best ways to do this is to learn Quran together as a family. Imagine having a family that sits together to understand the words of Allah, that connects through the stories in the Quran, and or that speaks the language of the Quran to one another. All of these do not only increase your love for the deen, it also definitely brings you closer as a family. If you decided to carry your family along in your journey to understand the Quran, some tips below can help. And believe me, it didn't fit on my slide over here, but says pretty much the same thing that the Spiritism says, and our brothers and sisters from the Mormon Church also says. Create the commitment to get a date that you can get together, study and discuss the concepts of the Quran and everything. Well, we saw the Mormons, we saw the Muslims. What about the Jewish? The Jewish people, they also have the concept to read the Torah together as a family. On this particular synagogue, for example, they grab it together at the end of the Shabbat, which is the sacred days for the Jewish on the Saturdays. They get together, parents and children and everything. But the most important thing here is this. The program is called, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that, which is a phrase that borrowed from the Shema, which means that you should throughoutly teach your children the words of Torah. So the Jewish is also, they have the obligation to be transmitting to their children the ideas and the concepts of the Torah, which is the sacred book for them. Okay, when we look into all of these ideas and concepts from the other religions, so I can come to the conclusion that the study and the practice of the so-called gospel at home, Monday nights evening, or family Monday, family evenings by the Mormons, or the study of the Quran, or this study over here, it's not something created by a religion. Okay, the gospel at home, the concept itself, it was not created by Spiritism. It was not created by any other religions or any other doctrine. It's almost like a divine guidance for all humankind. in order to spread and most importantly, to live by these divine principles. One of the main concepts, of the Spiritism is what we call the universality of the teachings or of the communications. The same information, the same communication was gathered from different places at different times, from different people, different mediums, but containing exactly the same concept and the same idea. So someone was in France, somebody else was in Italy, somebody was in Austria or England or Scotland or even in America, and they were getting communications from the Spiritists or the enlightened spirits. And when we get together, the information is the same for wherever it came from. It's important to remember that at that time, we didn't have WhatsApp, internet, email, CNN, nothing of this. The only way that we could communicate it to each other was through mail, letters, which is going to take 3 weeks, 4 weeks, sometimes even months to get from one place to the other. So it was kind of impossible to create a falsehood of information or create false information with people knowing about each other. So that's one of the main concepts, the universality of the teachings. When we look into this idea over here about the concept of studying the gospel, the sacred books together as a family, we can also see here as a kind of a universal teaching come from God. That's exactly what God is expecting from us, no matter which religion we are linked to. It's almost like a divine commandment. Please do read and do understand my teachings, my words, my values, my concepts, in order for you guys to be practicing and living by them. So if we follow this line of thoughts, the church of Christ, the church of Jesus becomes not even the places that we go to worship, but everywhere that we go. Because again, the base of our society is our home. That's our sacred place. That's the cornerstone of our values. That's where we learn the basic principles for our entire lives. So when we see all of this and this concept, then we can try to understand, or we can understand easily the whys, why we should be doing the gospel home or the family home evenings or the studies by the Torah or whatever we would like. And actually, I'm sorry over here because of lack of time and space, I didn't include our brothers and sisters from the Protestant religions. The Protestants, they have books teaching how to study the Bible at home. It's unbelievable the amount of information and literature that we can find out there teaching us how to read and how to understand those sacred books. But anyways, coming back into what is important in our concept, in our idea, is the vision under the Spiritism concept and teachings. So why we should be doing the gospel at home? First of all, in order to learn something, we have to dedicate some time and have some commitments in our studies. So the very first why is to study the gospel in the light of the Spiritist doctrine, which makes possible to understand and in spirit and truth, thus allowing us to guide our lives according to the Master's orientation. So in order to learn something, we have to dedicate time to that. So we're going to be able to understand the concepts and the ideas that Jesus is bringing to us. The second reason that we can bring is to make the gospel better understood, felt, and most importantly, exemplified at home in the first place, in all other places on a second step. The third reason is to expand the literal and spiritual knowledge of the gospel in order to offer it with more confidence to other creatures. So in order that we can start to live and spread out the word of Christ all over the places, we have to understand and start to practice at the base of our society, which is our home. So when we say over here to expand the literal and spiritual knowledge in order to offer it, to offer what? The gospel. How do we offer it? How do we offer the gospel to other people? Well, there's a famous phrase out there that says, preach the gospel at all times. Use words if it's necessary. This phrase is attributed to Francis of Assisi, but it has never been fully confirmed or proven. People attribute it to him, but it may be true or maybe not. I don't know. It's kind of difficult to prove. But at least what is important over here is the concept and the idea of this phrase: preach the gospel at all times. Use words when necessary. So, in order to preach the gospel at all times, what is the best way to preach the gospel? Living in by it, living on these examples. It's important also to remember that Christ had already said that the one who does not live as in his teachings is like the foolish man who builds his house on the sand. So imagine that we invest a lot of time learning the gospel, learning the concepts, learning the ideas, but we don't live by that. So what bothers? Why are we should be living or learning all of this if you were not living by this? If you were learning, we have the obligation to be changing ourselves inside of our homes first in order to bring into society new values by and through our examples in order to implement the church of Christ wherever we go, wherever we are. Because when two or more are gathered in his name, he's going to be among us, giving us the strength, the ideas, the inspirations, and everything else that we might need to be living with his teachings. Again, society will change from inside out. In order to change our society, we first must change ourselves. And that's how we're going to be implementing the gospel of home. One thing is the gospel at home. Why? That's the basic, the first steps that we take in order to learn something. So, in order to change the society, we have to be changing the concept of the gospel at home to the gospel of home in order to implement, change ourselves, and impact in help the society as well. So, how do we implement? How do we do this gospel of home? It's an easy answer: living like Jesus. Easy, right? It's just a matter to be living like him. We don't have to perform the miracles that he did. Just living like Jesus. It was not saying. It's not saying over here that we should be perform miracles, cure people, or do these, or gather 5,000 people and feed 5,000 people out of 2 fishes and 3 breads. No, it's not saying anything like that. It's just saying living like Jesus, which should be easy, right? Well, by what is to live like Jesus? It's kind of easy. It's just 4 topics that we have to do: be humble, be tolerant, be benevolent, and be forgiveness all the time. That's how we're gonna be living by Him. That's how we're gonna be implementing His church wherever we go. It sounds easy. It's not that difficult. As we have the material values and concepts so much stronger yet in our minds and our hearts, it becomes kind of a very complicated to be evaluating and deciding between the two values. I would say, on my personal opinion, and that's my own personal opinion, that's one of the biggest challenges that we have nowadays in our society is that the values of our world, the values of our society, it's totally conflicting with the values of Christ. Because if you go to our work, for example, we are expected to be the number one, the best, that brings the best results, no matter the ways of what important is the final results. We are expecting to be the best, the boss, having the more money, and doing everything in order to be achieving the number one position on whatever we are doing and everything. You are expected to be the best all the times and whatever you do. That's what the word expects from us. But Christ expects from us that we be patient, that we be tolerant, that we be benevolent, that we can forgive each other as we find and we are in conflict with our in our lives. So those values, they don't get along. And most of the times we have a lot of difficulties to make choices and decisions based on the values which are the most important, which clearly are the moral values. But as we are living the material life, the matter, the things on earth, we still have conflicts and deciding which one we should be applying whenever we are asked for. So what I to try to start to finalize our thought and our conversation today, I'm just going to bring here a few examples and maybe how we can start to practice these concepts and ideas to living like Jesus in our daily lives so we can be a little bit more closer to the concept and the idea to be living by Jesus' church and teachings and values on a daily life wherever you are. So when we say that we should be living like Jesus in humbleness, for example, when Jesus was humble to start with when he accepted his mission on earth. He is the one who created our world. Everything that we see over here, he was the one who gathered and grabbed and got from God the matters or the initial matters that would be forming our planet. He was the one in charge of the construction of it, all the elements that we have over here. He is the actual governor of our planet. So imagine Christ leaving the sun. It's just a figure of language. Living in the sun, which is the brightest star, the most pure planet. That's where we have the source of all energies for our planets and everything. So imagine Christ live in the sun where he lives, a bright place and a wonderful place, to come to live in Galilee, walking by foot on the dust with people smashing him all the time, not giving him the proper attention and everything else. So he was humble when he accepted his mission, when God told to them, I need you to go to earth and teach your people what needs to be taught. And he said, yes, master, I'm coming down. And Jesus came down. So he was humble just like that. He was humble also on a more earthly manner on the Last Supper when he washed the feet of his disciples, each one of them, including Judas, the one that was going to trade him later on, and including Peter, the one who's going to be denying him a few hours later. He knew of that, and even that, he washed all of his disciples' feet for all of them on the Last Supper. When Jesus was tolerant, for example, he was tolerant when he has when what is to be tolerant, for example, is to it's to be tolerant with the attitudes of other people. It's in order to accept or to understand ways of being of other people, being indulgent with someone's faults and everything. And Christ was indulgent with, for example, with the adulterous woman. He wasn't the one who condemned her or told the other people, "Oh, let's kill her. Let's practice the law as established or established by Moses." He was the one who whoever has no sins that throw the first stone. And then he asked her, "Where are everyone that condemned you? No one is here, Master. So I don't condemn you as well. Go and don't sin again." So he was very tolerant and indulgent on that passage. Um, when Jesus was benevolent, what is benevolent? Benevolent is an excess of kindness towards someone. Is to be tolerant, is to be forgiven easily. Christ was benevolent when he loved Peter and he asked Peter, "Do you love me?" Even Peter had been denied him 3 times on the same night. He was benevolent with the woman who touched his garments. the woman that was suffering with the blood hemorrhage. He was benevolent towards everyone that came towards him and asking for his help. When he was forgiven, when he practiced the forgiveness on one of the most ultimate ways, um, first he practiced the forgiveness when he said to people, "Go and make no mistakes," curing people, helping people, giving words of advice and everything, and saying, "Go and make no mistakes anymore." He was forgiven on the cross for the soldier. "Father, forgive themselves. They don't know what they are doing." And Christ was forgiving them and asking God for his forgiveness as well. Christ was forgiven when he went to fetch Judas, when he went after Judas, right after he passed away, after Judas had been killing himself, he was after him to try to help him out. So all of these teachings, all of these examples are just the ways and manners that we can do practicing these teachings and these values on our daily lives. Can we adapt this to ourselves? Can we bring something different and new concept? Of course we can. Do we know everything about it? We don't. Can we still learn a lot of things out of this? Yes, we can. But one of the most important things, and that's the final phrase that I'd like to leave with you guys today, is this one. The Church of Jesus can be implemented and practiced everywhere, but it starts at home. If we can practice these teachings where we live to start with, we can be called later on the true gospel followers. The true God spreads out the word of Jesus' teachings. But in order to do that, we have to achieve first this transformation in ourselves, in our homes, in order to be living by churches and the Christ's church's values outside our place. And thank you so very much for your attention. Thank you for being with me this morning. Such a pleasure to be here. Hope that I had left for you guys a good message and something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexa. You brought so many important things and concepts for us, and was very inspiring. And I'm sure we will all have a lot to think about, not only today, but during the following days, with this perspective and ideas and on how to expand our ways of promoting Jesus and his teachings within us. But we do have some questions, so let's start with the questions that we have today. So, Alex, we have mostly been practicing Spiritism for the past 2 years in our homes, following study courses or talks. What should be the preparation of the practitioner to follow these activities online?
Well, I think that's the one of the most important things that we should have nowadays is the commitment. If we are committed with the studies or the ideas or the concepts or the study that we're developing, uh, that will keep us linked and with the values inside of us. The commitment with the changes, the commitment with the involvement of ourselves, I think that's the most important thing. It's always important to remember, and sometimes we can fail, sometimes we can be a little bit weaker than usual. Maybe we can be affected for some other reasons or some external in our lives that are bringing difficulties. But if you always remember this, we are immortal spirits, that we are temporarily living a material experience. That will help us to give the strength that we need to keep fighting against our own imperfections. Because we are not fighting just because of today or tomorrow. We are fighting these because we are looking towards the long run. And the long run means two, three, four incarnations ahead of us. Whatever we're doing, whatever we're learning nowadays, we're going to be coming with us forever. If we think in our next incarnations, whatever I'm learning here, I might not use here, I might not be implement here, but I'm going to use this in the future because these I carry with me. My car, my values, my earthly and material possessions, I don't take them back with me to spirituality. But whatever I learn, whatever new knowledges and concepts I take with me, I learn with me, these are the values that I'm going to be taking with me. So let's say that I'm 90 years old by now. I should be living by 95, and I decide to start to study Spiritism or going deeper on my studies and the ideas. I might not be able to implement or live by these concepts right now or on this incarnation, but on the next, I'm already up to. I'm already ahead of what I would be having to learn because these knowledge, ideas, and concepts I already have it with me, and I'm going to be using them in the future. So I would say, even if you're doing online, the commitment and the idea that whatever we learn is not just for now but forever, I think that's very, very helpful.
Oh, that's yeah, you went right on the point, right? I
Yeah.
think today with the so many things, and which is a very good thing that we have available. Sometimes, it's hard for people to commit even in a sequential study or something like that. And absolutely, this is a work for many, many, many incarnations, but we have to start now, right?
Well, actually, Shusara, I was talking to someone a couple of weeks ago, almost 80 years old, 79, I think. Um, and that person said, "Oh, because I was talking about something," and she said, "No, I can't do on that day." I said, "Oh no, why not?" "No, because I have to go to my informatics classes, my technology classes." I said, "What?" "Yes, I'm learning how to play with Excel." I said, "What?" "Yeah, I need this for some kind of a spreadsheets and something." So I decided to take a technology course in order to learn how to deal with Excel, so I can be practicing this. And I was fool enough to ask them what it's for. I said to keep my mind open so I can still keep learning. Poof! On your face, just
Yeah,
like that. It was a tremendous wake up call for myself.
that's what we can call having a vision, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Okay, so let's see. We have more questions here. Daniel's asked, "What is your thoughts on the phrase 'God at home' to be more inclusive to all religions?"
Actually, as I was bringing this idea and this concept, it's pretty much that. What is different? The concept is exactly this. It's God at home. But each one of the religions, they call this in a different way. We call the gospel at home because the gospel is our base. Now, that's where we thought or that we extract the teachings, the moral values of Jesus to be studying and understanding. Some other people take this out of the Quran, others say take out of the Torah or something like that. So each religion calls in their proper way. And why is that? Because, as I said in the beginning, we are still very focused, linked, and looking at the material aspects of the thing, the religions, the institutions, the buildings, the physical thing. The idea is exactly that: is bring the God at our home through gospel, through Quran, through Torah. That's just the way that we do it. But the concept and the idea, it's bringing God and His principles and His values to our home. Because the God for each one of our religions, institutions, whatever we can find out there, is the same. If God is the same, the teachings and the values are the same.
That's excellent. It's a matter of bringing spirituality to home, right? Sometimes
Exactly.
we have this at our centers as well. People that are, married with other faiths, interfaith marriage, and we say, well, listen, the important thing is to bring this religiosity to home and using the books, the material that are more inviting to others, right? So let's see if
Yeah.
we have some more questions. Yasko. Hi, dear Alex. Good concept and information. I understood that whatever religion prophets one follow, in the end, they all converge to an harmonious life in family. I wonder if the problems we see today, like the more prevalence of mental disorders, increased suicide rate, may be due to the weakening or even disruption of family ties. Thank you, Yasko, for your question.
That's for sure, but it's not just for that. Not just for the disruption of the family ties, but our disconnection with the divine. And divine over here, I means divine, not just the religion itself is just in a way that we can connect with our God. All the religions they have a very important role to fulfill within our society, um, and the lack of connection that we are having with the divine also brings for this disruption of the family ties. Uh, on my personal perspective and idea, this disruption of the family ties starts with our disconnection of the divine. We stopped to look at the divine or divinity or spirituality in our lives because it's not part of the earthly values or what is expecting from one in life nowadays. Everyone is expected to be connected with Instagram, YouTuber, and everything. We are paying more attention to the YouTubers for the influencers. I don't know exactly what they are influencing, who to do what, but that's where we're paying attention today to the influencers, and we are not paying attention to our divinity, to our spiritual side, which is nowadays science is coming closer and closer and being more, I would say, reinforcing the idea of our wholesome being that we are today. Not just matter, but also the spiritual, also mental, also psychological, and everything else. And we are not looking into this. So we are disrupting these family ties because we are disconnecting with the divine. I believe that to fix this, one of the very first things that we should be doing is connecting ourselves with the divinity as well. And Josana, if you may, I can see over here a question that I would like to answer, which says, "How do we deal with family members at home that are not receptive to the idea
Yes,
with
okay.
with a respect, a lot of respect?" Because my idea and your idea they might not be the same, but it's just the two different ways that we can reach the same goal. Usually, I like to say that if it's not against God's law, that's no such a thing as the right and wrong. That's my way and your way, my vision and your vision. So if you share your home, your house with someone that does not profess for the same faith, the very first thing is to respect their faith. And as we respect, we also expect respect from the other person. So in order that we can follow our way or our pathways in the way that we believe that it would be the best for ourselves. We do not try to bring one or the other to the other way because we're going to be disrupting the values of each one. We don't change anyone. People change by themselves. I've been trying to change my wife for 40 years. Guess what? Unsuccessful. She's not going to be changing, even because she's already perfect as she is. So there's nothing much more that I could be doing over there. But we don't change other people. People change by themselves when they decided that they have to change, or whatever philosophy or beliefs that they have, it's no longer fulfilling them. That's when people change. So, how can we be dealing with the family members? First, with the respect, and secondly, asking and expecting the same respect for yourselves, in order that we can have your way and your manner to connect with the divinity.
Oh, that's wonderful, Alex, because we have to remember that the spiritual journey is very personal, right?
Oh yes,
Uh, Everyone has their own time and their own as it happened with us. Maybe now we are more aware, but I'm sure there were times where we were like, completely numb and not accepting invitations as that we have received it. So each one has their own time, and I like it very much how you put all this into this word that is so important, which is respect, and that is really really good. So before we ask Alex to say his final words and to say the prayer for us, again we would like to ask everyone to support our efforts, the efforts of the United States Spiritist Federation, with a donation, if you can, at our website, spiritist.us, or scanning the QR code on screen. We are on a process of, preparing many books for publication, and all the support we can get for to make it possible. It's going to help us a long way. And again, next week we will be celebrating our 2 years of continuous talks. We will have Naur Fonseca on April 9 here talking to us about immortality of the soul, a skeptic's perspective. So you are all invited. It's going to be a wonderful day of celebration, and also to receive this dear friend, Naur from Sika. Alex, if you would like to say some final words to us, and then the prayer, please.
Yes, I would like to also, Josara, thank you so much once again for the opportunity, for the invitation. It's such a pleasure to be here on this morning. It was an opportunity for myself to learn different things and different perspectives. This entire thing, for example, from the Mormons, from the Muslims, from the Jewish, that was something that it blew my mind. I didn't expect it to find that. I thought that the gospel and holy was just a concept from Spiritism that the guys from the Spiritist Center says that we should do it because it's good. No, it's not. It's a divine mandate for all of us, which is it's amazing. It really brought my ideas, my concepts. So I'm the one who has to thank you because I had the opportunity to learn something new myself during the study as well. Thank you so very much. So in order that we can all show in our gratitude towards this moment, I would like to invite all of us to connect ourselves with our divinity, our guardian angels, to say, Dear Lord, our Heavenly Father, we are so very much thankful for this moment and for this opportunity. Thank you for the light that you shine upon us. Thank you for all the new information, the new ideas and concepts that we just learned this morning. Once again, dear Lord, give us the strength that we need to fight against our own imperfections, so we can be tomorrow a much better person than we were yesterday, and that we can come out at the end of our journey on earth much better than when we came and we got in. Thank you for all of these opportunities. Please bless our friends, brothers and sisters out there which are in need for a prayer, in need for embracing. I would like to ask in a very special manner for our brothers and sisters from Ukraine and Russia. Both people are suffering so tremendously on this moment. May your light be shine up on their leaders, warming their hearts, inspiring their thoughts, in order to find a solution for this conflict, which is not going to benefit no one. May your love, may your light, may your blessings be on us, pour on us on this morning and each and every day of our lives. And so be it. So be it. Thank you.